is everyone so obsessed with owning property? Is it really that important to put down a huge pile of money and then spend 30 years paying off a house? Yes! Why? Equity! What is equity and why is it a big deal? Banks.com defines home equity as the difference between your home's current value and your outstanding mortgage balance. For example, if your home is worth $400,000 and you owe $310,000 on your mortgage, you have $90,000 in equity. Over time, the amount that you owe on your house decreases while the value of your home increases. Equity works in several ways. When you pay off your home, you no longer have a monthly mortgage payment, and you can use that money for lots of other endeavors. If you rent, you never have that end in sight. You can also borrow against your home's equity, but be careful, your house is not an ATM. But if you have equity in your home, you can borrow against it for things like remodels or renovations, repairs, or even medical bills if times get tough. Equity is a forced savings account. If you continually pay your monthly mortgage, after you pay off your house, you'll have a large amount of equity. You can then sell your home and pay cash for the next property, fund retirement, or leave wealth for future generations. This graph from KCM shows the average amount of equity that Americans are sitting on. The key to equity is time. In a crazy market, you may see large shifts in value in a short period. Hello, 2008, down. Or 2021, up. But most of the time, the shifts are slow and steady. What's important is to think of property as a long-term investment, a buy and hold strategy, because even when values dip, they recover. Just ask anyone who bought at the high point of 2007 and then saw a massive dip. But what if that same person then sold even higher in 2021? Equity is relative to the amount of time that you have owned the property. Take a look at this graph about home equity from Black Knight. Going back to 2005, you can see a rise in home equity and values and then a big drop during the Great Recession of 2008. But look what happens over time. Two things. Values recovered and went up while people were paying down the loan amount of their mortgage. The gap between the two is equity. Let's go back even farther. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis compiled some fascinating data going all the way back to the 1960s. Look at the graph as a whole first. This shows the year and the average sales price. Notice that there have been drops and dips all along the way, but what's the overall trend showing? Up and to the right, which means homes are worth more and you have more equity. So if you bought at the top of 2007 when the average sales price was $322,100, you may have seen that big drop that came slowly after and thought you were out of luck. And assuming you didn't lose your job and you were able to keep paying your mortgage, fast forward to 2022. You made a ton of money if you sold. And if you didn't sell, the equity that you've earned hasn't gone anywhere. It may fluctuate, but time in the market is what's most important. To be fair, let's play devil's advocate. You can see post-pandemic that there's been a drop in home sale prices. If you sold at the end of 2023, you sold at the lower point of the last several years. But even with that, unless you bought between Q1 of 2021 and now, you still made money on your real estate investment. Equity is how you build wealth, and it's why real estate is so important. It doesn't mean you have to buy 30 houses. Just start with one house you can afford and let your equity grow from there. Because if someday you do want to own multiple properties, the best way to do it is from equity on that first house, because equity unlocks everything. I'm Lindsey Johnson, your resource for all things real estate. See you next time.